I know the Nazis ventured into the Tibet entrance in the 1930s, but do you know if they were successful in actually reaching the caves down there?
They had contact, but mostly through the aforementioned monks.
Okay.
They collaborated with certain monks at a particular time, but their main interest was getting information about other structures in Antarctica. There was also when there was a certain push and pull, so to speak, between certain members of the Federation and us in terms of getting control over this particular social political experiment on your planet that then later turned to a space program.
Okay, so they didn't make it all the way down to the caves. They just talked to some of the monks on the surface.
They went down there with the monks, at least some of them, yes.
Okay. So did they find anything of significance, like information about Antarctica or whatever?
Yes, they met with certain people down there from the inner civilization that gave them information.
Okay. Cool. Now you
There was
said
also certain entrance in Antarctica that then they were to use later on. Some of this, however, goes on in their actual politics due to the part that was given to them by us in the Antarctic region based on an agreement they made down there with Earth people at this particular point. That's all we can share about that.
right. I understand. So can you tell me to what degree Adolf Hitler and the other Nazi leaders were involved in the occult? For example, did they go as far as worshiping Satan and ritually sacrificing humans to him to gain power the way the Illuminati groups currently do?
No, but from what we're aware of. Well, there are obviously certain occult groupings. They already made contact with some Aristarian groups, perhaps, but some of them are also likely more neutral. Well, you need to take into consideration there are numerous groups out here, so one the Empire, one the Federation, right?
Right.
So, there are certain groupings in the Aldebaran system, yes. They made similar contact to a certain group on Earth, the same way the West made contact to us, yes. Those were likely females to a large degree, however, they were not practicing any occult, they were perhaps more involved what you would consider now airy fairy, etc. You were perhaps more personally involved with your own idea of what you consider spirituality in your own personal modern day phenomenon, whatever, yes. Now, those groupings were in one direction polarized once they came in contact with another group, yes. A certain solar idea of what you're aware of, that's perhaps what you're seeing on your screen right now, yes?
Right.
At least somewhat like that. There's not a group that was more into, well, they discovered Freemasonry or what happened to Freemasonry after the Illuminati took it over. Then they decided to do their own spin of it, yes, and distance themselves from Freemasonry. The original leader was involved with something like an Islamic version of Freemasonry and then went offshore, but that's not of any importance to their contact to us. The more important ones were the women grouping, yes, that made those particular endeavors, which opened up something you consider extraterrestrial contact after a long period of hiatus of no interactions. Yes? Now, after this happened, something like physical contact at least became more possible because people can only experience what they're convinced is possible. Now, once there's the more massive branch got involved, at least from your perspective, or at least more a branch that was more conducive to our frequency. Yes, we then make contact with the branch as this particular branch was also decided to branch off. There are certain things that are interested in politics, so we cannot share too much details as far as it is involved with us. Yes.
Okay.
So we're looking into right now what can possibly be shared and what not, right?
Okay. Yeah, like the main thing I was just wondering about is like whether they worship Satan and did sacrifices.
Not similar to the Illuminati grouping, yes. They will not split off the groupings that still ruling large area of your blood to this very they are practicing much more of the occult. This particular group was perhaps more pagan, as you're calling such, yes.
Okay. Um, all right. Now it's well documented that Adolf Hitler was addicted to many different drugs, including cocaine and morphine, during World War II. Do you know if this played a large role in turning the tide of the war against Germany by harming his ability to lead?
Unlikely. Certainly it harmed his ability to make military decisions, but largely there was a split between groups that we earlier mentioned that came from the aforementioned secret society, the Order of the Black Sun that came from that, yes. Remember that one particular individual was harnessed from there and made a leader from this particular group, but later on another group gained influence among the Illuminati, yes. And then there was a string pulling, similar to the Soviet Union, and rose as an opposition to your so-called capitalist West, and then was taken over by the very same groups that said was originally saying it was going to branch off from, right?
Okay.
Same groups also extend their arm on this particular political party, yes? That took over the party to a large degree due to the financial means. Then those groupings surrounding the secret societies, when they realized thus, they sprang off, however both remained connected to the emperor. And there are groups surrounding those particular females earlier mentioned, distanced themselves from the emperor, yes?
Okay.
Not quite to the same degree as we did now, to a larger degree, and then they went off planet, physically. They fled. Their purpose also more of a pacifist attitude, likely. Now, the idea that the split up occurred, also within the party, was more because one group was getting more under the influence of your so-called Illuminati governments, while another group wanted to do their own thing and they split off and they physically left the planet as well, but they were still remaining connected to the Empire. They didn't want to leave the solar system entirely.
Okay.
They're also the group that we still have a physical connection with to some degree.
Okay. Do you know why the Nazis were unsuccessful in building atomic bombs by the end of the war?
They were not.
Are you saying they did build atomic bombs by the end of the war?
Yes.
So why didn't they use them?
First and foremost, your intelligence likely made it your sabotage, yes. Make it likely harder for them to be brought up, yes. Besides that, they lost air superiority at a point. They were finished. There might also have been some moral obligation of using them anywhere near their own territory, as they had not been tested sufficiently, so it was uncertain exactly what would happen.
Interesting.
One of them was likely dropped on Japan.
What do you mean? You mean the Nazis dropped an atomic bomb on Japan?
Unlikely. The URO Air Force likely after they found them somewhere around somewhere around the border of what is now the border to your country of Poland, which around that time, or Czechoslovakia, but around that time was more or less right in the German Reich, yes?
Oh, interesting. So you're saying the U.S. found a Nazi atomic bomb and used it on Japan?
Likely. We're uncertain it was both of them or just one.
Okay.
Likely both.
So, but I mean, the U.S. did invent atomic bombs themselves, right? So why did they use German atomic bombs? Or
They were not finished at that time. They were still researching.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, there's more surrounding this whole area, this phenomenon, yes. As a lot of the research also involved spying and sabotaging back and forth, yes.
Uh-huh.
A lot of the ideas that were obtained by the Reich at a particular time also came from our empire. And then therefore, of course, also the Allied powers tried to get ahead and not just research, but also harvest whatever they could get from this particular technological exchange. You're considering, we believe, reverse engineering.
Okay.
Including some of the spacecrafts that you now term flying saucers.
Right. Do you know if Hitler really had Parkinson's disease, which made his body shake at the end of the war, like some people believe?
Very likely, yes, at least he had the symptoms. Might also be related to the tracheus, this person, the end of during the war, was to us of no more use.
What was his main use? I mean, was he just like a good speaker?
Yes, well, numerous individuals from the Western tradition would likely disagree with some phonetically opposed and some phonetically aligned to the individual, depending on time frame, or also, of course, compared to those that went off planet, those that remained on planet, yes. Or the way we are considering such, even among his own followers, many have ditched him before the war went in the allied direction, so to speak, yes? Because he was too big for his britches at one particular point in time. So obviously many saw him more as a leader or even as sort of a half-god or whatever, but those that were involved with the governments more closely saw him more likely as a good forefront. He was chosen among the earlier members of the very party that he joined, yes, because he had a certain abilities to hold speeches, yes, and he was considered to be a good military leader of those that brought him to the forefront. But it's not like he came up with all the ideas. So as many of your historians have their idea of what would have happened if he never came to power. Well, likely somebody else would have taken his place.
Right. So during the battle between the U.S. and the flying saucers of the Nazis and their allies during Operation High Jump, what kind of weaponry were the saucers firing at the U.S. planes and ships?
For what we are aware of, they also had a certain energy weapon, right? They had something like a cannon that was firing, well, not literally sand, but something similar to the concentrated laser idea. Obviously, laser weaponry to some degree were also employed, right? But this earlier point, they mostly had something like your US government by now has also artificially constructed similar means, funneling something like sand or something similar like smaller particles into a very distinct beam that can also cut through things very easily. We believe you're even using this in peaceful technology to some degree, but they also already had something like a primitive laser.
Okay. So what did these primitive lasers during the battle look like? Were they just invisible, or did they have actual reddish beams like in Hollywood movies?
They're somewhat reddish, yes, but not necessarily like in the Hollywood movies, not as gleaming red like a lamp.
Okay.
First, more like a laser pointer.
Okay. Do you know which side fired at the other first?
For what we are aware of, the invaders attacked first, but their simple trespassing on the territory was already seen as an attack anyway.
Okay. So, were the U.S. ships firing their anti-aircraft guns at the saucers?
Yes,
Okay. Uh, Now, the coordinates to the base camp where this battle took place at are publicly known, so I mean, it shouldn't be too difficult for somebody to go here and, find the sunken ships if they wanted to, in order to prove that the battle really happened. Do you know if the ruins of the ships are still there today, or were they removed?
we're not aware, but likely something can still be found, yes, even in some parts of a wreck.
Okay. Um, So I know, as you've mentioned many times before, that the class race is in contact with the Nazis that ventured off into space. Are you allowed to say where their current headquarters is?
No, or what we can say that yes, some of them have gone to what you consider again the moon. Obviously also to Antarctica, but obviously the original base was broken off. Some of them ties into reptilian politics. And no, it's not the idea that they're traveling with us to the entire universe, waging war on everybody else. That's somewhat exaggerated. Fake news.
Okay. So how is it even possible for any of them to be alive still? I mean, anybody who fought in World War II would be close to 100 today at least. So did they find women to create a second generation with, or are they just using some kind of technology to stop their aging?
Both, or mainly it's simply the next generation.
Okay. Uh, are you allowed to say roughly how many of them there are today? Like, like what their population is?
well, a few hundred in one base, for example. We're not aware how many bases they have, and some also venture outside the solar system, but those are ones that work with other, yeah, those monkeys, and we're aware how much they reproduced over there.
Okay.
Just referring to a base that's still left down there.
Okay. So are they still in the third dimension?
Yes.
Do they have a preferred name for their group? Like, do they want to be called the Fourth Reich or something?
Seems like an appropriate term, yes, but again, there are numerous groups that left. Some just flat integrated into another ET civilization. Those that are still somewhat operatives, that's perhaps the most acceptable term. We're aware from numerous names from both Euro as well as Russell culture for this particular group. For what we're aware of, they use none of those, or the Fourth Reich is obviously from their perspective acceptable for what we're aware of.
Okay.
But it's not like they have a massive empire that's now currently controlling your planet or anything like it. They're just an overall group, the same way we broke off the empire, for example, but we're still a part of it, yes?
Okay. So
and yes, a lot of their armament is also still left on your planet unattended.
Okay.
So that the bases are also empty. It's not like your entire planet is under tunneled and there are constantly like U-boats or flying saucers coming out of nowhere. It's controlling all your seas, or mostly it's just stored away equipment.
Okay. So what is their ultimate goal? Is it just for them to have their own civilization somewhere and to survive, or do they still want to have control over Earth?
One group that has fled for the other branch system obviously just left. Again, they integrate with their society to the best of their ability, right? Their goal was simply to get away.
Okay.
The other group that has surrendered on your planet obviously has political ambitions, just like China or Russia or the United States or European Union have political ambitions.
Right.